We all know what it's like to wake up and just not feel like working. Maybe your body feels heavy, your mind is cluttered, or you're simply not in the mood to put in the effort. But here's the truth. Those are the moments that matter most. The days you don't feel like working, that's when the real progress happens. It's easy to show up when you're feeling great, but what separates the people who succeed from those who fall short is the ability to push through even when you don't want to. In this video, we're going to explore exactly how you can force yourself to work, even on the days when everything in you is telling you to stop. I'm going to share practical strategies to break through that resistance and develop the kind of discipline that will carry you to success, no matter how you feel. Because success isn't just about the big moments. It's about consistently showing up, even when it's hard, even when you'd rather be doing anything else. By the end of this video, you'll have a new mindset that will help you turn those tough days into the most powerful opportunities for growth. If you've ever struggled with staying motivated, if you've ever wondered how to keep going when everything inside you is saying, "I can't do this," you're in the right place. Let's dive in and change how you approach your work, your goals, and your life. This is where the real transformation begins. Don't miss out. Let's dive in. Number 1, stop waiting to feel ready. The habit of waiting until you feel ready. You've probably been there before. You know that feeling. You're sitting there thinking, "I'll start tomorrow. I'll get serious once I feel more prepared." Maybe you've told yourself that you'll begin a new project when you feel more confident. Maybe you've convinced yourself that you need to get your life together first before you can start pursuing your dreams. Here's the problem. Waiting to feel ready is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Think about it for a second. When do you ever feel 100% ready to take on something new? When do you feel completely prepared to step into something you've never done before? The reality is that moment doesn't exist. You're never going to feel fully ready. The truth is, feeling ready is an illusion. You're waiting for a feeling that won't come. And the longer you wait for it, the longer you delay taking action. I can tell you from experience, waiting for the perfect moment will only keep you stuck. You'll spend years waiting for the right time. You'll tell yourself, "Once I have more experience, once I have more knowledge, once I'm more confident, I'll start working toward my goals." But all you're doing is pushing off the hard work. It's a trap. I get it. There's a certain comfort in waiting. It feels safer. You don't have to take risks, and you don't have to deal with the uncertainty of starting something new. But here's what you need to understand. Nothing ever happens when you wait. Nothing changes. There's no magic moment when you suddenly feel completely ready. Life doesn't work that way. If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you'll be waiting forever. The key is to get started, even if you don't feel ready. The best time to start is right now, no matter where you are. When I look back at my own journey, I can honestly say I never felt ready for anything. When I started out, I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know exactly how things were going to turn out, but I took action anyway. I pushed myself to take the first step, even when I was scared or unsure. And you know what happened? The more I took action, the more prepared I became. The more I worked, the more confident I felt. But that confidence didn't come from waiting. It came from doing. And that's the key. You don't have to have all the answers before you start. You don't need to know exactly how things are going to play out. What you need is the courage to take that first step, even when you're not sure what will happen next. The act of starting, the act of doing, is what will teach you what you need to know. It will show you the way forward. When you start, things won't be perfect. You'll make mistakes, you'll face setbacks, and you'll probably feel overwhelmed at times. But that's all part of the process. Don't let the fear of making mistakes hold you back. Mistakes are just lessons in disguise. They're how you learn and grow. They're how you become the person you need to be to reach your goals. The truth is, the longer you wait to start, the harder it becomes to take that first step. It's easy to get comfortable in the waiting phase, but you're not moving forward when you're waiting. You're staying stuck. And I don't want that for you. I want you to take action. I want you to get out of that comfortable waiting phase and start doing the work. The first step is always the hardest, but it's also the most important. Once you take that step, you start building momentum. You start moving forward, even if it's just a small step at a time. So let go of the idea that you need to feel ready. Let go of the fear that you're not good enough or that you don't know enough. The truth is, you're never going to feel fully prepared. but that's okay. The important thing is that you start. Once you start, you'll gain the experience and the knowledge you need along the way. And before you know it, you'll be further along than you ever imagined. The key is to stop waiting. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for the perfect feeling. Take that first step today, and don't look back. You might not know exactly how things will turn out, but that's part of the excitement. That's where the growth happens. When you take action, you'll learn, you'll adjust, and you'll move closer to where you want to be. Remember, the moment you stop waiting and start doing is the moment your life begins to change. So stop holding yourself back. Stop waiting for the right time. The right time is now. Take that step and don't look back. Number 2, the secret to beating laziness. We all deal with it, don't we? It's that feeling where you know you should be doing something, working on your goals, sticking to your plans, but instead, you just don't feel like it. You're tired, or maybe you're feeling distracted, or simply overwhelmed by the work ahead. So you end up putting it off. You think, I'll get to it later, and then later becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. And before you know it, you've lost valuable time. But here's the thing about laziness. It's not something that happens to you. It's a choice. We all have those moments when we want to take the easy route, when we'd rather avoid hard work and settle into comfort. It's natural. But what separates the people who succeed from the ones who don't is the ability to push through those moments of laziness. The ability to make a choice, not to give in to the comfort, but to push forward, even when you don't feel like it. We've all been there, right? You wake up in the morning with the best of intentions. You have a plan, a to-do list, and a whole day ahead of you. But then something happens. You get distracted, or you start overthinking. Maybe you convince yourself that you deserve a break, or that the task can wait, and suddenly you've lost hours. That's laziness creeping in, and it's sneaky. It doesn't announce itself with a big sign saying, I'm here. It just takes advantage of those little moments of weakness, when you're not focused, when you're not thinking about your long-term goals. But here's the truth. Laziness is the enemy of progress. Every time you give in to it, you're taking a step back from your goals. Every time you decide that you'll start tomorrow, you're delaying your success. And the longer you put things off, the harder it becomes to get started. So how do you beat it? How do you push through those moments when all you want to do is take the easy road? First, you've got to understand that laziness is not something that just happens to you. It's a habit. And like any habit, it can be broken. It's not something that's built into your personality or your character. It's something you've allowed to take hold. And the good news is, you can break that habit. You can choose to work instead of giving in to comfort. You can choose to take action, even when your mind is telling you to relax or wait for the right moment. The secret to beating laziness isn't about waiting for motivation to strike. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment when you feel energized and ready to take on the world. That's not how it works. The secret is discipline. Discipline means doing what you need to do, even when you don't feel like it. It's about developing the habit of doing the work, even when your emotions aren't on board. And the more you practice discipline, the easier it becomes. You start to see that you can push past the discomfort and take action, even when laziness is pulling at you. One of the best ways to break free from laziness is to create momentum. When you start working, even on something small, you begin to build momentum. Momentum is like a snowball. The more you do, the easier it becomes to do more. When you get started, even if it's just for 5 minutes, you're telling yourself that you are in control. You're reminding yourself that you have the power to push through, no matter what. Think about the times when you've started working, even when you didn't feel like it. Once you've made that decision to take action, it doesn't take long before you're in the zone. The key is just to start. Don't worry about finishing the entire project or getting everything perfect. Just start. That's the first step. And once you've started, you'll be amazed at how quickly your energy picks up. The problem with laziness is that it feeds on itself. The more you put things off, the more you feel stuck, and the harder it is to get going. But the opposite is true when you take action. The more you take action, the more momentum you build. And the more momentum you have, the easier it is to keep going. Now, I know it's not always easy to push yourself when you don't feel like it. I know that sometimes the last thing you want to do is get up and get to work. But you've got to understand that every time you push through, you're building something powerful. You're building discipline, you're building focus, and you're building the habit of taking action. And those things are priceless. They will carry you further than any momentary feeling of comfort ever could. Here's something else to think about. Laziness doesn't just stop you from getting things done today. It has a long-term cost. Every time you put things off, you're pushing back your progress. You're delaying your success. The more you allow laziness to take control, the harder it becomes to make up for lost time. And eventually, it catches up with you. That's when regret sets in. You look back and realize that you wasted so much time, that you let laziness rob you of your potential. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can break that cycle. You can make the choice right now to fight laziness and take control of your life. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Every time you choose to push yourself, even when you don't feel like it, you're making progress. Every time you choose action over comfort, you're moving closer to the life you want. And the best part is you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do it. You just have to start. So the next time you feel that urge to put things off, remind yourself that laziness is just a choice, and you have the power to make a different choice. You have the power to push through, to build momentum, and to create the life you want. All it takes is the decision to get started. It won't always be easy, but every small step you take today brings you closer to the future you want. Don't let laziness control you. You are in charge. Take action, and you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish. Number 3. Your feelings are not in charge. Your feelings are not in charge. Too often, we let our emotions dictate how we behave. We let them control our actions and stop us from reaching our full potential. I mean, think about it. How many times have you not done something because you didn't feel like it? How many times have you skipped a workout or put off an important task simply because you weren't in the right mood? It happens all the time, doesn't it? We allow our feelings to take the wheel, and then we wonder why we're not getting ahead. But here's the thing. You can't let your feelings decide your success. If you want to achieve anything meaningful in life, you've got to learn to separate yourself from how you feel in the moment. You can't let a bad mood, tiredness, or a lack of motivation hold you back. Your feelings will change. They come and go, like the weather. But your actions are what will determine the direction your life takes. Let's say you wake up in the morning and you're feeling tired. Or maybe you're just not excited about the day ahead. That's normal. It happens to everyone. But if you let that feeling dictate your actions, if you decide to stay in bed just because you're not feeling it, what does that do for you? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It just keeps you stuck. It stops you from doing what you need to do to make progress. And over time, you end up further and further away from where you want to be. The truth is, your feelings are temporary. They are fleeting. They are not solid. But your habits, your discipline, and your actions, they're permanent. So if you want to build something meaningful in your life, you've got to stop giving in to those feelings that tell you to take the easy way out. It's hard. I know it is. It's not easy to work when you don't feel like it. But the best part of life is on the other side of that hard work. That's where growth happens. That's where success comes from. Now, this isn't to say you should ignore your feelings completely. There are times when it's important to listen to your body, to take a break when you really need it, or to step back when you're feeling overwhelmed. But there's a big difference between taking care of yourself and letting your feelings control your actions. The key is knowing when to push through and when to step back. And that comes from having a sense of discipline, of training yourself to take action, no matter how you feel. I'll tell you something I've learned over the years. The feelings will always come and go. You can't control them. You can't always wake up and feel excited or motivated to tackle the day. But you can control what you do despite those feelings. If you wake up tired, do you really need to wait for the perfect moment when you feel fully energized to start your work? No. You don't need that perfect feeling to take action. In fact, the more you wait for the perfect feeling, the longer it will take to get anything done. The people who succeed are the ones who don't wait for the perfect mood. They don't wait for the perfect day. They just get started, even when they don't feel like it. They understand that feelings are just that, feelings. They're not facts, and they don't have to control your actions. You can feel tired, but still get up and get to work. You can feel unmotivated, but still push through and do what needs to be done. And in doing so, you build the habit of working through discomfort. You build the habit of showing up even when it's hard. And that's how you win. That's how you get better. If you wait around for your feelings to be in line with your goals, you'll never move forward. The reason so many people fall short of their potential is because they only take action when they feel like it. But successful people, people who make things happen, take action regardless of how they feel. They've learned that their feelings are not in charge. They've learned to show up for their goals, whether they're feeling it or not. And let me tell you, this is a powerful skill. This is what separates the people who achieve their dreams from the people who sit around waiting for things to feel right. You can't wait for the mood to strike. You can't wait for motivation to hit you out of nowhere. Motivation comes from doing. It comes from action. When you take that first step, even when you're not feeling it, that's when the energy kicks in. That's when the momentum starts. But it doesn't start by waiting for the right feeling. It starts with taking action, even when your feelings are all over the place. Now think about it this way. Imagine if you only worked when you felt motivated. If that was the case, how often would you get anything done? Probably not very often. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings aren't reliable. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. But habits, they're reliable. Discipline is reliable. When you build the habit of doing the work, even when you don't feel like it, you're setting yourself up for success. Because success isn't about feeling good all the time. It's about showing up, doing the work, and pushing through, no matter what. If you want to accomplish big things in life, you've got to make a choice. You've got to choose action over feelings. Don't let your feelings control you. Don't let them tell you when to work and when to rest. Your feelings will try to talk you out of things, but you've got to make the decision to push forward, even when it's hard. The people who succeed aren't the ones who wait for the right feeling. They're the ones who make the decision to take action, no matter what. And you can do this. You can take control of your actions. You don't need to wait for the perfect mood. You just need to show up. You need to take that first step, even when it's hard. And the more you do it, the easier it will get. It's not about waiting for motivation to come to you. It's about creating momentum by doing the work, even when you don't feel like it. That's where the magic happens. That's where growth comes from. So the next time you're feeling tired, or unmotivated, or just not in the mood, don't let those feelings stop you. Remember, your feelings are not in charge. You are. You decide what to do, and you get to choose action. So get up, take that first step, and let your actions lead the way. You've got this. Number 4, the power of just starting. Let's talk about one of the most powerful ways to break through resistance and make progress, especially when you're feeling stuck. It's called just starting. I know it sounds simple, almost too simple, but hear me out. It's one of the most effective tools you have in your arsenal to get out of that rut, to stop procrastinating, and to make things happen. So often, the hardest part of doing something is simply getting started. We sit there looking at a task or a goal, and it feels like this massive mountain that we have to climb. The problem is, we spend all this time thinking about how hard it's going to be, and that's what stops us. We freeze. We become paralyzed by the thought of everything we have to do. But here's the truth. You don't need to climb the whole mountain at once. You don't need to have the entire plan laid out perfectly before you take action. What you need is the courage to take that first step. You need to get started, even when it feels like you have no idea where to begin. It doesn't matter if you don't know all the answers right now. You don't have to have everything figured out to get started. The key is in that very first action, that very first move. You know, I've seen this so many times. People tell me, I just don't know where to start. It feels too overwhelming. But the reality is, by not starting, you're only making things harder on yourself. It's like standing at the edge of the pool, scared to jump in because the water looks too cold, too deep, or maybe even too risky. But the moment you actually take that jump, everything becomes clearer. You realize the water wasn't as cold as you thought, and it's a lot easier to swim once you're in motion. Now, I know how it feels to sit there and think about how much you need to do. It can be overwhelming. Maybe you're thinking about a big project, a personal goal, or even just your day-to-day responsibilities. And the thought of it all feels exhausting. But I'll tell you this, none of that is as exhausting as sitting there thinking about it over and over again while doing nothing. The mental energy we spend avoiding the task is often more draining than just doing the task itself. So how do you push past that mental block? How do you stop spinning your wheels and actually get moving? You start small. You start simple. You don't need a grand plan. You just need a single action, a phone call, a first step, the smallest action that moves you forward. You don't need to do everything at once. In fact, you shouldn't. Trying to do everything at once can be paralyzing. But if you break things down into smaller, more manageable steps, and you focus on just starting, just doing that one small thing, you'll find that the whole process becomes a lot less intimidating. Think about this for a moment. If you've ever gone to the gym, you know it's not always easy to motivate yourself to go. Some days you might not feel like it. But here's the trick. You don't have to commit to a full workout when you're standing there in front of the gym door. All you need to do is take the first step. Walk through the door. Once you're in, it's much easier to keep going. The hardest part is showing up. Once you show up, the momentum takes over. And if you've ever done this, you know that after you've done that first set, you don't want to stop. The same goes for anything in life. You don't have to do it all right away. You just need to take that first step. Here's why it works. Once you start, you begin to create momentum. It's like pushing a car that's been parked in the driveway for too long. At first, it's hard to get it moving. But once it starts rolling, it becomes easier to keep it moving. The same principle applies to everything you do. When you take action, even if it's small, you're building momentum that will help carry you forward. And that momentum becomes a driving force that makes the next step easier, and the next, and the next. Before you know it, you've gained enough speed that you're well on your way to accomplishing your goals. But let's be clear. This doesn't mean that everything will suddenly feel easy. It won't. But that's the beauty of just starting. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment or the perfect amount of energy. You don't need everything to line up perfectly. You just need to show up and take that first step. No matter how small it is, the energy and motivation will come once you get started. That's where the magic happens. It's in the doing, not the thinking. You see, when you start, you're teaching yourself something incredibly powerful: discipline. Discipline isn't about doing everything perfectly or doing everything right. It's about showing up and doing what needs to be done, no matter how you feel. It's about creating a routine, a habit of taking action. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more you get started, the less resistance you'll face next time. Here's another thing to remember. We often make the mistake of thinking that starting something new means we have to be perfect from the get-go. But perfection is not the goal. Progress is. And progress comes from starting, from taking action, from learning as you go. You don't have to have everything figured out today. You just have to start. The other day, I was talking to someone about a big project they were working on, and they were feeling overwhelmed by the size of the task. They were stuck in the how of it all. How am I going to get all of this done? What's the best way to approach it? And I told them the same thing I'm telling you now. Stop focusing on the whole thing. Stop trying to figure it all out. Just start with one small thing. Take that first step. The rest will follow. And let me tell you, the moment you take that first step, things start to shift. The task doesn't seem as daunting. You'll find yourself moving through it with more confidence, more clarity. It's the act of starting that clears away the confusion. It breaks through the fog. And once you're in motion, you'll see that you were never as stuck as you thought. You were just waiting for permission to start. But you don't need anyone's permission. You already have what you need inside of you to make that move. So if you're sitting there today staring at your to-do list or thinking about the big project that's waiting for you, remember, the hardest part is getting started. But once you do, everything else falls into place. You don't need to wait for motivation to strike. You don't need to wait for the perfect time. You just need to take that first step. And when you do, you'll see that the rest is easier than you thought. Remember, momentum is your friend. The more you do, the more you'll want to do. And the more you do, the more progress you'll make. So take that first step today. You've got this. Number 5, the danger of skipping one day. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to tell yourself, that skipping just one day won't matter. You've probably been there. You've been working hard, you're feeling a little tired, and the thought crosses your mind. Maybe just today I can take a break. It seems harmless. One day, just one. And it's so tempting. You've been doing everything right for so long, so surely one day won't hurt, right? But let me tell you something, and I want you to really hear this. The danger of skipping just one day is not in the day itself. It's in what happens after. Because what starts as one day can quickly turn into 2, then 3, then a week. Before you know it, that one day you decided to skip has turned into a habit. And that habit, if left unchecked, becomes a way of life. It's the little choices we make in moments of weakness that determine whether we stay on track or fall off course. It's not the big decisions that will derail you. It's the small ones, the seemingly insignificant ones, that can end up costing you everything. When you skip one day, it doesn't just affect that day, it affects the momentum you've been building. It disrupts the routine you've worked so hard to create. Momentum is everything. When you're on the path to success, you've heard people say, the first step is the hardest. Well, the second step isn't always easy either. And the third step is even harder. It's easy to get started, but it's not always easy to keep going. And when you skip a day, you break that flow. You break that momentum. You stop building the habit that's going to get you where you want to go. Think about it. If you've been getting up early every morning to work on your goals, whether that's writing, exercising, learning, or anything else, you've built a rhythm. Your body and mind have adjusted. Your days feel like they're in sync. But when you skip just one day, you're telling yourself that it's okay to take a break. You're telling yourself that your goals can wait. And here's the issue with that. When you take one day off, you don't just lose one day. You lose the momentum you've built. And that's much harder to get back than you might think. It's like trying to roll a ball up a hill. Once it stops, it takes so much effort to get it going again. I'm not saying you should never rest. Rest is important. Your body needs it. Your mind needs it. But there's a difference between rest and giving in to the temptation of skipping. Rest is purposeful. It's planned. It's a necessary part of the process. But when you skip a day, thinking it won't make a difference, you're not resting. You're losing ground. It's subtle, but it's powerful. It's also important to remember that you're building a mindset, not just a routine. Every day you push yourself to show up. Even when you don't feel like it, you're reinforcing a belief in yourself. You're teaching yourself discipline. You're teaching yourself that success is about showing up, even when it's difficult. Skipping one day isn't just about missing out on one day of work. It's about weakening that muscle of discipline, that muscle of showing up no matter what. And here's the thing. Life will always try to get in the way. There will always be reasons to put things off. There will always be things that tempt you to take a break. But that's where you make your stand. You have to decide right now that no matter what comes up, you will keep showing up. You will keep putting in the work. Because you know that one day of skipping could easily turn into 2, and then 3, and then months. Before you know it, you're wondering where the time went. You're looking back and realizing that all those small decisions to skip added up to something big, a whole lot of lost time. What you don't see in the moment is that skipping today leads to more difficult days down the road. It's like putting off saving money or putting off a difficult conversation with someone. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes. You put it off, telling yourself you'll get to it later, but later never comes. That's why consistency is so important. It's not about making huge leaps every day. It's about showing up day after day and doing the work, no matter how small the progress seems. That's how you build momentum. And when you have momentum, nothing can stop you. When you make the decision to push through and not skip, you're making a statement about who you are and what you want out of life. You're saying, I'm in this for the long haul. I'm not going to let one bad day or one moment of weakness knock me off course. And that's how you succeed. The people who make it are the ones who keep going. They're not the ones who never feel like quitting. They're the ones who just refuse to quit. One thing I always tell people is this: when you feel like giving up, that's the moment you need to push the hardest. That's the moment when everything is on the line, when you're being tested. And how you respond in those moments will determine your future. It's easy to keep going when everything is going well. It's easy to show up when you're feeling good, when you're motivated. But it's when things get tough that your true character is revealed. It's when you feel like skipping, when you feel like everything is working against you, that you need to dig in and keep going. If you want to succeed, you've got to make a habit of showing up. You've got to make a habit of doing the work, even when you don't feel like it. It's in those moments when it's hardest to show up that the greatest progress is made. It's when you push through those moments of doubt, when you fight against the urge to take the easy way out, that you build strength, character, and success. So the next time you feel the urge to skip a day, ask yourself, what will this cost me? Because it's not just that one day you're losing, it's all the progress you've made and all the progress you could have made. And that cost is too high. It's too valuable. Don't let one small decision, one small act of weakness, turn into a pattern of giving up. You've got this. Don't skip, keep pushing forward, even on the tough days, because it's those days that matter most. Number 6. How to find strength when you feel weak. There are times when we all feel weak, right? You wake up tired, worn out, maybe discouraged, and the thought of pushing yourself to do anything feels like a massive effort. You're not alone in this. Every single person who's achieved anything worthwhile has faced this same challenge. But here's the good news. Feeling weak isn't a permanent state. It's a temporary feeling. And you have the ability to turn it around. It's important to recognize that feeling weak is a part of being human. We all experience moments when we feel like we just don't have what it takes to keep going. It's normal. But the key to overcoming that feeling, the key to finding strength when it feels like it's nowhere to be found, is realizing that you are stronger than you think. It's about tapping into something inside you that's been there all along. The moment you decide to take action, the moment you choose to push through that weakness, you begin to unlock a power within you that you didn't even know was there. The first thing to understand is that your feelings are not the enemy. I know it feels like your feelings of weakness are holding you back, but they're not the problem. The real problem is when we allow those feelings to control us. When you feel weak, it's easy to start thinking that you can't do anything, that there's no point in trying, or that it's better to just rest and give up. But that's where you make your stand, because those feelings, as real as they may seem in the moment, are not the truth of who you are. They're just feelings, and feelings change. If you want to find strength, you've got to stop giving so much power to those emotions. You can't let how you feel today dictate what you do tomorrow. In fact, sometimes the best way to find your strength is to take action even when you don't feel like it. It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? You feel weak, and the solution is to act as if you're strong. But that's how you build strength. That's how you push through the feeling of weakness. You don't wait until you feel powerful to take action. You take action, and that's what makes you powerful. Think about this: strength is built through repetition. It's not something that comes in an instant. It's the little decisions made every day that gradually add up and make you stronger. And the more you push through the weak moments, the more you teach yourself that you are capable of handling whatever comes your way. This is where real strength is forged. It's in the moments when you want to quit, but you keep going anyway. It's when you want to take a break, but you choose to push through. It's when you decide that feeling weak won't stop you from doing what needs to be done. It's also helpful to remember that when you feel weak, it's not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're human, and that you're stretching yourself beyond your comfort zone. You're challenging yourself, and that's where growth happens. Strength doesn't come from staying in your comfort zone. Strength comes from pushing yourself when you don't feel like it. It's the act of stepping up, even when everything inside of you is telling you to step back. Another powerful way to find strength when you're feeling weak is to break things down into smaller steps. When you're feeling exhausted, it can feel like the mountain in front of you is just too big to climb. But if you can take that mountain and break it down into smaller, more manageable tasks, it becomes a whole lot less overwhelming. You don't have to conquer everything all at once. You just have to take the next step, and then the next. And before you know it, you'll have made more progress than you thought possible. It's all about building momentum. The more you take action, the more you push yourself, the more you'll begin to feel that strength returning. It's like lifting weights. The first few reps are tough, but as you keep going, your muscles grow stronger. The same principle applies to your mental and emotional strength. The more you keep showing up, the more you'll develop the resilience you need to keep going, even when things get tough. I know it's not easy. I'm not sitting here telling you that it will be a walk in the park, but I am telling you that you can do it. When you feel weak, it's not the end of the road. It's a temporary feeling, and it's something that can be overcome. The way you do it is by continuing to show up, continuing to take action, and continuing to push forward, no matter what. And here's the truth. Every time you push through those moments of weakness, you become stronger. Every time you refuse to let your emotions dictate your actions, you become more resilient. Every time you take action, even when you don't feel like it, you reinforce the belief in yourself that you can handle whatever comes your way. But I want you to remember this. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to carry the weight on your shoulders by yourself. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to lean on others when you're feeling weak. We all need support from time to time. And don't forget to celebrate the small wins along the way. Recognize that every time you push through a moment of weakness, you're making progress. It's easy to overlook those small victories when you're focused on the big picture. But those small wins are the building blocks of success. They're what add up over time to create real lasting change. Another thing to keep in mind is that it's okay to take a break when you need it. Pushing through doesn't mean burning yourself out. There's a difference between pushing through moments of weakness and ignoring your body's need for rest. It's about balance. It's about knowing when to take a step back and recharge, and when to push forward and keep going. Strength isn't about constantly being in go mode. It's about knowing how to move when it's time to move, and knowing when it's time to rest and recharge. Finding strength in moments of weakness is a skill. It's something that you can develop and get better at the more you practice it. And like any skill, it takes time. But I promise you, every time you choose to push through, every time you choose to take action despite how you feel, you're building that skill. You're getting better at it. You're strengthening your resilience, and you're teaching yourself that no matter how tough it gets, you can handle it. So the next time you feel weak, remember this: it's just a moment. It's not who you are, and it doesn't have to define you. You've got strength inside you, even if it's buried deep down right now. And every time you take action, no matter how small, you're digging a little deeper and finding more of that strength. You've got this. The strength you need is already there. You just have to start using it. And once you do, you'll be amazed at what you're capable of. Number 7, turn work into a personal challenge. You ever have those moments when everything you're doing just feels like a grind? When the work isn't exciting anymore and it feels like you're just going through the motions? I know that feeling, and I know it can make you want to throw in the towel. But here's the thing. Those moments, they're exactly when you have the chance to make the biggest impact. The key to keeping going, especially when it feels like nothing's changing, is to turn the work into a personal challenge. Make it something you can take on, not just something you have to do. The challenge isn't just about the work itself, it's about how you approach it. It's easy to get stuck in a routine where you do the same thing every day and it starts to feel meaningless. But you're not a robot. You're a human being, capable of more than you realize. So let me tell you this: challenge yourself every day to bring something new to the table, even when it seems like it's the same thing over and over again. Don't let the routine make you lose sight of the fact that you're in control. The work can feel repetitive, sure, but the way you approach it, that's where you have the power to create change. If you want to make progress, you need to make that work personal. You need to find a reason to push yourself harder than you did yesterday. Because when you make it personal, that's when you begin to take ownership. You start to see that each small task is not just a task. It's a step towards something greater. You don't just show up to get through the day. You show up to make a difference. You show up to challenge yourself to be better than you were before. It's about setting personal standards and then pushing yourself to meet them. Even when no one's watching, even when no one's cheering you on, you're doing this for you. Here's the thing about challenges: they're uncomfortable. And that's where we learn the most. It's easy to stay in your comfort zone, but nothing happens there. Nothing grows there. So every day, challenge yourself. Challenge your limits. Challenge the way you think about your work. When you stop seeing it as a job and start seeing it as a personal challenge, that's when things begin to change. That's when you begin to push yourself beyond what you thought was possible. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment to do something great. You don't have to wait for the right conditions. You don't have to wait for things to feel easy. Challenge yourself to show up when it's tough. Challenge yourself to do it anyway, even when your mind is telling you to stop. The key here is that you take pride in what you do, no matter how small it might seem to others. Whether it's the quality of the work you produce or the effort you put in, make it personal. Make it about what you want to achieve, not about what you're getting from it. Now let's talk about pushing yourself further than you think you can go. Sometimes the hardest part is simply starting, and that's okay. We've all been there. You're tired, you're drained, you feel like you've given all you have to give. But listen, this is when you need to challenge yourself the most. When you're tired, when you feel like you've hit a wall, that's when you need to dig deep. That's when the most growth happens. I want you to understand that just because you're feeling drained doesn't mean you're done. In fact, you're just getting started. The moment you push past that wall is the moment you discover how much more you're capable of. You can't measure your limits by how you feel in any given moment. If you're feeling like giving up, that's just a sign that you're about to break through. The great achievers, the ones who get what they want, aren't the ones who always feel on top of the world. They're the ones who keep going when they don't feel like it. They challenge themselves to do more than they think they can do. Even when they're exhausted, they show up when the energy's low, when the motivation isn't there, and they still give their best. And that's what sets them apart. You don't need to feel like it to do it. You just need to make a decision to push past the discomfort. Here's a powerful way to think about it. Treat every piece of work as an opportunity to compete with yourself. Look at your past efforts and ask yourself, how can I make today better than yesterday? You're not competing with anyone else. This isn't a race. It's about competing with your own standards. This way, you're always striving for growth. You're always looking to improve, no matter how small the improvement may seem in the moment. That's what progress looks like. And it's okay to set big goals, but don't make the mistake of thinking that success comes all at once. It doesn't. It's about those daily challenges, those daily efforts to push yourself harder, to do one more rep, to stay just a little longer, to give just a little more. It's those moments that add up to the bigger picture. Every small effort counts. Every little push forward makes a difference. And when you challenge yourself to keep going, even when it's tough, you'll realize that the impossible becomes possible over time. Another thing to keep in mind is that personal challenges are about more than just your work. It's about your growth as a person. It's about becoming someone who doesn't quit, who doesn't back down when things get hard, and who shows up even when it seems like no one is watching. It's about becoming the person you've always wanted to be, and that requires consistent effort. It requires showing up and doing the work. No matter how you feel, no matter how hard it gets, you want to become a person who is strong enough to face any challenge, who is resilient enough to keep going, no matter the obstacles. That's who you are working on becoming. The way you approach your work has the power to change your entire life. You have the ability to turn every task, every project, every responsibility into a personal challenge. And that's where the magic happens. Because once you start treating the work as a challenge, it stops feeling like a chore. It stops feeling like something you have to get through. Instead, it becomes an opportunity to push yourself to new heights. It becomes a way to test your limits, to see just how far you can go. And when you rise to the challenge, when you push yourself beyond what you thought was possible, something incredible happens. You start to see just how strong you really are. You start to realize that you can handle so much more than you thought you could. Every time you rise to a challenge, you get stronger. And that strength, that confidence, will start to spill over into every area of your life. So challenge yourself. Don't settle for doing the bare minimum. Aim higher, push harder. Do it for you, because you are capable of more than you realize. Keep challenging yourself to be better, to do more, and to keep growing, no matter what. Number 8, the payoff of pushing through there are moments in life when you feel like you've given everything you have. You've pushed yourself. You've worked hard. And yet it still feels like you're not getting anywhere. The progress is slow, and it's easy to start questioning whether all this effort is worth it. But let me tell you something. The payoff for pushing through is often so much greater than you realize, and it's almost always worth it. It's easy to get discouraged when you don't see immediate results. But the truth is, every time you push through, even when it's hard, you are building something far more valuable than any immediate success. You're building resilience. You're building the strength to keep going when things get tough. Sometimes the hardest part is not the work itself. It's pushing through the moments when you don't feel like doing it. It's those moments when you're exhausted, when you're mentally drained, when the motivation just isn't there. But here's the thing. The payoff of pushing through those moments is incredible. The moment you decide to keep going, despite the exhaustion, despite the doubt, that's when you unlock something inside of yourself. That's when you tap into your true potential. When you're pushing through, it might feel like you're not making any progress. Maybe the work seems endless. Maybe the goals feel out of reach. But the reality is that every single step forward, no matter how small, is progress. You may not always see it, but trust me, it's happening. Every time you choose to push through the discomfort, every time you decide not to quit, you're making progress. You're growing stronger, more resilient, and more capable of handling what comes next. The truth is, the payoff of pushing through isn't just about the result. It's about the person you become in the process. Think about it. Every time you push yourself beyond your limits, you grow. You learn things about yourself that you wouldn't have learned if you had taken the easy route. You become stronger, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. You start to build the kind of mental toughness that separates the people who succeed from the people who give up. The most successful people aren't always the ones with the most talent or the easiest path. They're the ones who learned how to keep going, no matter how difficult the journey became. Pushing through isn't just about powering through pain. It's about being able to stay focused and committed, even when everything around you seems to be falling apart. It's about showing up for yourself when you don't feel like it, when it feels easier to throw in the towel and walk away. The payoff of pushing through is that you become someone who doesn't quit. You become someone who understands that the hard work is what will ultimately lead to success. But I'll be honest with you, it's not easy. If it were easy, everyone would do it. If the journey were smooth and straightforward, there wouldn't be any challenge. But the challenge is exactly what makes the reward so worth it. You're not just working toward a goal, you're developing the kind of mindset that will carry you through any obstacle. You're learning to push past your fears, past your doubts, and past the part of you that wants to give up when things get tough. That's what sets you apart. Think about the times in your life when you faced challenges and pushed through. Maybe you didn't see immediate results, but looking back, you can see how far you've come. Those moments, those struggles, shaped who you are today. They gave you the strength to keep going when you didn't want to. And that strength is something you can carry with you into every area of your life. The payoff isn't just about accomplishing one specific goal. It's about the kind of person you become in the process. And that person is far more capable, far stronger, and far more confident than you were before you started. But it's not just about the physical results you get from pushing through. It's about the mental and emotional payoff. It's about the feeling you get when you look at yourself in the mirror and know that you didn't give up. That's a powerful feeling. It's a feeling that says, I'm not someone who quits. I'm someone who finds a way to keep going. And that feeling, that inner strength, is the real reward. It's the confidence that you can handle whatever life throws at you because you've proven to yourself that you can push through anything. When you push through the hard times, when you choose not to give up, you start to change the way you see yourself. You start to see yourself as someone who can handle challenges. You start to realize that nothing is impossible if you're willing to put in the work. And that's a mindset that will carry you far in life. The most successful people are the ones who are willing to do the work when others aren't. They're the ones who understand that success doesn't come overnight. It's built on a foundation of hard work, perseverance, and the willingness to push through the tough times. I want you to remember this. The payoff is always greater than the price you pay. The effort, the sweat, the frustration, it's all part of the process. And in the end, it's all worth it. You are worth it. Your dreams, your goals, your future, they are worth every ounce of effort you put in. So don't give up when it gets tough. Don't stop when you feel like you've reached your limit. Because that's when the magic happens. That's when you unlock your true potential. And that's when you realize that you are capable of so much more than you ever thought possible. When you push through, you don't just get to the finish line. You become someone who is capable of achieving anything. You become someone who doesn't back down from challenges. Someone who understands that success is not about avoiding hard work, but about embracing it. And when you do that, the payoff isn't just in the success you achieve, it's in the person you become along the way. Number 9, the reward of pushing yourself. There's a certain feeling that hits when you're just not in the mood to work. You wake up, and instead of feeling motivated or ready to take on the world, you feel the complete opposite. Maybe you're tired. Maybe the thought of starting feels overwhelming. Or maybe you're simply not inspired. You've been there, right? We all have. It's easy to find reasons to not do the work. Maybe your mind starts making excuses, telling you that you'll do it later, that it's not the right time, or that you're not in the right headspace. But here's something you need to understand. You are not always going to feel like working. In fact, most of the time, you won't feel like it. That's the truth. And it's important to accept that up front. Life isn't going to hand you motivation on a silver platter every day. Success doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It doesn't wait for you to feel inspired or motivated. The work has to be done regardless of how you feel. And if you wait for the right moment or the perfect feeling, you'll find that the work never gets done. You have to understand that feelings are just that. Feelings, they come and go. They're not permanent. And just because you don't feel like doing something doesn't mean that you're incapable of doing it. It just means that in that moment, your feelings are telling you one thing, but your true potential is telling you something completely different. And if you give in to those feelings, you'll miss out on the opportunity to push yourself, to challenge yourself, and to grow. So how do you force yourself to work when you don't feel like it? It starts with realizing that your feelings are not in charge. If you let your feelings dictate your actions, you'll never get anything done. Think about it. How many times have you skipped working on something because you weren't in the mood? How many times have you let your emotions take the wheel, only to regret it later? I know you've been there, and I know it doesn't feel good. The key here is discipline. Discipline isn't about being hard on yourself or forcing yourself into something you absolutely dread. It's about doing what you know needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It's about making the choice to show up for yourself, even when your mind is telling you to do the opposite. Discipline is the difference between knowing what needs to be done and actually doing it. It's about taking action, even when you don't feel ready, even when the motivation isn't there. Now, I'm not saying that you should ignore how you feel all the time. There are moments when you need rest, when your body and mind need to recharge. But that's different from simply avoiding work because it feels hard or uncomfortable. You need to develop the ability to push past that mental barrier, that feeling of resistance, and just start. The hardest part is always starting. Once you get going, you'll often find that the momentum builds. But the key is to push through that initial resistance, even when it's uncomfortable. When you force yourself to work, even when you don't feel like it, you're building a habit, and habits are powerful. The more you show up, even when you don't feel like it, the easier it gets over time. It doesn't become a fight anymore. It becomes a part of your routine. You start to realize that the work, the effort, the grind, it's not something to be afraid of or avoid. It's something to embrace, because you understand the value it brings to your life. The work you put in today is what creates the success you experience tomorrow. Think about the days when you don't feel like doing anything. You wake up and you just want to hit snooze, right? But then there's that voice in the back of your mind, reminding you that if you don't take action now, you'll be one step further from where you want to be. You'll fall behind, and before you know it, the goal that once seemed attainable starts to feel out of reach. That voice is your reminder that you can't wait for motivation to hit you. You have to show up, even when you don't feel like it. You have to put in the work, because success doesn't care about your excuses or your moods. It only cares about results. When you make the decision to force yourself to work, you're sending a message to yourself. You're saying, I'm in control. You're saying that you have the power to make things happen, even when the conditions aren't perfect. And that's a message that your subconscious will pick up on. The more you show up, the more your confidence grows. You start to believe in your ability to do the work, no matter what. And the more you believe in yourself, the easier it becomes to push through those days when you don't feel like it. You'll also start to see the results. Maybe not immediately, but over time, as you push yourself to work consistently. Even when it's hard, the results start to stack up. The small efforts you put in each day, even when you don't feel like it, compound and build on each other. Before you know it, you'll be looking back at everything you've accomplished and realizing that it was all worth it. Those days when you forced yourself to work, even when you didn't feel like it, they were the days that made all the difference. But the true reward is in the process. The act of pushing through, of forcing yourself to work when it feels impossible, is where the real growth happens. It's in those moments that you prove to yourself that you can do more than you thought. You develop the kind of mental strength that makes everything else in life easier to handle. You become someone who doesn't let their feelings dictate their actions. Someone who understands that success is built on consistent effort, not on waiting for the perfect moment. If you can learn to work when you don't feel like it, you'll be unstoppable. Because it's not about waiting for the right time or waiting to feel inspired. It's about taking action. No matter how you feel, it's about doing what you know needs to be done, even when you don't want to. And that's what separates the people who succeed from the people who don't. It's not the ones who are the most talented or the most fortunate. It's the ones who learn how to push through, to show up, to do the work, even when they don't feel like it. Number 10, the cost of skipping work. When it comes to achieving success, there's one thing that separates those who make progress from those who fall short. It's the simple, yet powerful decision to show up and do the work consistently, no matter how you feel. But let's talk about something that many people overlook, something that might seem insignificant at first, but if you let it slide, it will come back to haunt you. That thing is skipping work. It's so easy to justify taking a day off. We all have those moments when we feel drained, when the last thing we want to do is work, whether it's a busy day, a rough week, or just feeling overwhelmed. The temptation to skip a day, to say I'll catch up tomorrow, feels irresistible. It feels like it won't hurt, like it's just one day, right? But let me tell you, that one day can turn into 2, 3, or more, and before you know it, you've broken the momentum you've worked so hard to build. You've allowed yourself to fall behind, and it becomes harder to get back on track. The thing is, when you skip one day, you're not just taking a break, you're creating a pattern. It's easy to say, it's just today, no big deal. But the truth is, those small decisions add up over time. They don't just affect your productivity in the short term. They begin to affect your mindset, your habits, and your progress in ways you might not even realize at first. Think about it like this. Every time you skip work, you're telling yourself that it's okay to not be consistent. You're telling yourself that it's okay to break your commitment, even if it's just for a day. And once that habit starts, it's incredibly difficult to break. You see, consistency is what leads to success. It's what separates those who are committed from those who give up when things get tough. But when you skip, you let inconsistency creep in. You begin to normalize taking breaks, even when you don't have a good reason to. And that's dangerous. What happens is that skipping work becomes easier the next time. You start justifying it with excuses. I've been working hard lately. I deserve a break. Or maybe you convince yourself that the task isn't really that urgent. But here's the thing. You're building a habit of choosing comfort over progress. And that is the opposite of what success requires. Success demands consistency. It demands the ability to push through, even when you don't feel like it, even when you'd rather do anything else. Because the truth is, the world doesn't care about your excuses. The world doesn't care if you're tired or stressed or feeling uninspired. Success doesn't wait around for the right time to show up. It happens because people decide to show up, even when they don't feel like it. It happens because people decide to push through, even when it's difficult. So what happens when you skip work? Well, you lose momentum. And momentum is everything. When you're on track, when you're moving forward and making progress, it's like you're on a roll. Things just seem to click. But the moment you stop, the moment you skip just one day, that momentum starts to slip away. It's like pushing a boulder up a hill. It's hard work, but once you get it rolling, it starts to move more easily. But if you stop, if you skip, it's like stopping that boulder and having to start all over again. And that's why consistency is so important. The other thing to remember is that when you skip work, you're not just skipping the task at hand, you're also skipping the opportunity to grow, to improve, to get closer to your goals. Every moment you spend working is a moment invested in your future success. You're building your skills, gaining experience, and moving forward. Every time you choose not to work, you're choosing to stay where you are, to remain stagnant. That's not a choice that leads to growth. It's a choice that keeps you stuck. Now, I know there are times when you're truly exhausted. There are days when your body and mind need rest. And I'm not saying that you should never take a break. Everyone needs time to recharge, to step back and refresh. But there's a difference between taking a genuine rest and using an off day as an excuse to avoid work. When you skip, it's often because you're avoiding discomfort. But real growth happens outside of your comfort zone. It happens when you push yourself, even when it's not easy, even when it feels uncomfortable. Success doesn't come to those who stay comfortable. It comes to those who are willing to step up, even when the work is tough, even when they're tired. Skipping work also affects your mindset in ways you might not realize. Every time you let yourself off the hook, you reinforce the idea that you're not capable of pushing through. You begin to doubt your own discipline and work ethic. And when you start doubting yourself, it becomes even harder to get back on track. You begin to question whether you're truly committed to your goals, whether you're really cut out for success. The truth is, you're capable of far more than you give yourself credit for. The only thing that's stopping you is your own decision to skip, to take the easy way out. So what's the solution? The answer is simple. Don't skip. Don't allow yourself to make excuses. Show up, even when you don't feel like it. Push yourself, even when it's hard. Remind yourself that every moment you put in is a moment closer to where you want to be. Success doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you choose to do the work, day in and day out. It happens because you understand that every day counts. It happens because you don't let yourself fall into the trap of skipping, of taking the easy way out. When you refuse to skip work, when you make the commitment to show up every day, you're not just working toward your goals. You're building a character of perseverance, discipline, and resilience. You're proving to yourself that you can handle anything that comes your way. And that's the kind of strength that will carry you through any challenge, no matter how big or small. The cost of skipping work is far greater than the cost of showing up and doing the work. So make the decision today. No more skipping, no more excuses. Show up, do the work, and watch how everything starts to change.